Now, just a word of warning, when you are canning beans, it will smell like bean off-gassing in your house. Hello, howdy, and welcome back to my kitchen. I'm Catherine, the Aerogarden Homesteader. So, today I'm going to get started on canning up some pinto beans. I need to put in, I don't know how many cups I need, but I need to measure out the cups because I'm going to try the Fermented Homesteaders no fart method. And I'm also going to pick through them because, you know, dirt, rocks and stuff. I sometimes have beans disagree with me. It's more like I get trapped gas from it. I don't know what causes it, but something causes the gas to get trapped, and it's very unpleasant. So I really want to give this method a try. I'm going to go and, probably making a ton of noise right now, I'm going to go through and sort some beans, and I'm going to keep track of the number of cups so that I can add the appropriate amount of vinegar. Now, she uses apple cider vinegar. I don't know if it makes a difference what kind of vinegar gets used, but I do have a little bit of apple cider vinegar, so I'm going to give that a try. And we will see. So I'm going to pick through these beans, I will get in the appropriate amount of vinegar, and I will get them soaking overnight. I will probably give them a good wash the following morning and add more vinegar, because it looks like she does 2 soaks. So I'll either give it a quick rinse before bed and put more vinegar water in, or I will do it first thing in the morning. Now, one thing I'm going to do is, I have these 3/4 pints. So I find that sometimes 1 pint of beans is a little bit much, and you know, I could underfill the jars and just add extra liquid, which is fine, but we had a sale on these recently and I picked up a bunch, so I thought I would just can up the beans in this. So I can fit more of those in my canner than I can pint jars. So I will be able to can up a whole bunch, because those are about the same size as a jelly jar, is really what it boils down to. So I'm just going to go ahead and pick through. These are really dirty for some strange reason. I must have gotten low quality beans. There's some pretty nasty looking ones as well. But yeah, this is what I'll be doing, and then I will fill it up with the appropriate amount of vinegar and water and get them soaking. Another rock thing. I'm sure there are better ways, faster ways, but just put a few in your hand. You can scan through them pretty quickly. Now, I do have other types of beans in my pantry, but I don't keep a lot of different kinds. I generally just use pinto beans for everything, because you know what? When it's a baked bean, you can't tell what color it was. Now, these beans are pretty old, so I don't know how well they will hold up to the processing. Guess we'll see. And I don't know how mushy they'll end up. That's kind of one of the reasons why I want to try this. I've done the no-soak method in the past, which I do kind of like, but you know, there are safety issues around that, so it's what's your comfort level sort of thing. This is what I've gotten so far. I don't know if you can see all those little, that's a bean. This is a bean piece, but they kind of look like rocks on the bottom. And then the rest of these are all like bits of rock and sand all stuck together. So definitely check over your beans. Okay, just to show you the process, so I have my 6 cups of beans in here. I have filled it up with water, and because I have 6 cups, I want to make sure I do 1 tablespoon of apple cider vinegar per cup of beans. So I put in 6 tablespoons. So it's actually 1/4 of a cup plus 1/8 of a cup if you have, if you don't want to use tablespoons. And while I'm at it, I figure since I'm going to be canning up those, I am going to also can up some chickpeas. And I already got my vinegar in there. I don't think you'll be able to see it, but yeah, you're not going to be able to see it. See it in the bottom. But I'm going to fill this up with water as well. It's kind of in a bin that's got cracks in it, so I got to be careful with it. But I'm going to soak this overnight, and then in the morning I will change out the water for more vinegar water and let it go for a little bit longer before I start processing it. So I will see you guys tomorrow. I'm rinsing the beans. and putting on fresh water with more apple cider vinegar, again at the 1 tablespoon per cup of beans, and I'm going to let it soak for a couple more hours before processing. I also picked out any floating skins that I saw, but I didn't go out of my way to go and find them all. It has been about 3 hours since I rinsed them this morning, so I'm going to drain them, give them another rinse, and get them in the jars. So these I'm just doing straight in the jars. The chickpeas will go straight in the jars. And the pinto beans, I will just be simmering those to get some of the scum off, and then putting those in the jars. So I'm going to actually run the canner twice. Man, I keep dropping. Okay. So, let's get these in the jar. Okay. Cold jars, cold canner, cold food. The reason why I'm doing this is, as you can see, I only have 3 jars here, and I will not have a full canner load. So I have some chicken stock in the fridge that I did yesterday, so I will be putting that in as well, just to fill up the canner. So, lost another one. Okay, these need 1 inch of headspace, and I believe I have enough here to do 3 jars. So this was 2 and a slightly more than 2 cups of beans, or chickpeas. I guess they're beans as well, or bonzo beans. I'm just going to help them settle a little. I don't want to jam-pack them in there, but I do want to make sure that my headspace is good. There. And they will go in for 1 hour and 15 minutes. So, just going to fill these up with water and get them in there and get them going. Okay, once you get it filled, you do have to get your debubbler down there. For things like this that are kind of on the chunky side, you probably want to use a chopstick instead of the flat one. There you go, 1 inch of headspace, and then I just need a wet rag to wipe the top, and I will put the lid on. This doesn't get too gunky, so it's probably not terribly bad. And then I just go until I hit resistance, and then go a little bit more. And there we go. I will get the other ones going, I will get my stock in there, and I will get this started. So I'm just going to start it on like a just above medium, but below medium-high heat, and I'll just slowly bring it up to temperature. Okay, so my canner has come up to temperature, and it is venting right now. I don't know if you can see the steam. So I'm going to let that vent for 10 minutes before I start my hour and 15 timer. And just to let you know, this is not an official USDA-approved recipe for canning chickpeas. I think you're actually supposed to simmer it for like 20 or 30 minutes and hot pack it. But I needed to cold pack it for this particular application because of the cold stock, so I probably could have figured out a way to do it, but you know what? I've done the raw pack before, and it works fine for me, and I'm okay with that. So I just soaked it this time to see if soaking in the vinegar would be a better way to go to cut back on some of the gas issues. So, just an experiment, and I'm not doing too many jars, so. Okay, so the next step for these, the pinto beans, is to fresh, clean water, no vinegar in it. I'm going to bring this up to a simmer, and I'm going to simmer it for 30 minutes. This is the hot pack method. I'm no expert at canning. Please follow instructions and guidelines from whatever agency you trust. The chickpeas were a cold pack method, and that's not normally a acceptable method. So I just did that because I had the stock, which I guess I could have heated up. But so my canner just, like, literally just finished. I turned it off. It is now in cool down mode, and that should hopefully give me time to, this is a big pot. It's got like almost 7 quarts of water in it, so it's going to take time to get this up to temperature, simmer for 30 minutes. I'm going to skim any foam off it and then get it in the jars. And like I said, I'm going to be doing the 3/4 pints for these because I think it'll just be a better size. And besides which, I can fit like a ton of them in my canner, so hey, that's a bonus too. I can do a whole bunch at once. So I will bring you back as things start happening. I can show you the skimming. I don't know how interesting that'll be, but I'll bring you back for every step. Okay, so I am going to skim any foam as it forms. And I'm just following how the Fermented Homesteader is doing this. She says that this isn't actually part of any of the official directions, but that this will substantially help with gas reduction, which I'm hoping it does, because when I get it trapped, it's really bad. I also discovered that my camera is for right-handed holding, and doing this in my left hand while trying to actually use my dominant hand to scrape is really awkward. So anyways, this is just barely getting hot, so I will just, I haven't even started my half-hour simmer yet, but I will just keep going and skim any foam off. I'll probably remove some of the skins as I find them. And that's that. This is going to be my next half hour. Probably a little bit longer because it still hasn't come up to a full simmer yet. Okay, so I have jars in the canner with water in it to at least get me started. I got water on the boil because we're going to fill this with fresh water. And then over here I have my pot with the beans that have simmered for 30 minutes. I did drain some of the water just to make it easier to get them out because I do not want to use any of that farty water. So let's see how this goes. So normally I don't fill my water, I don't pre-fill my jars. I'm going to do that this time just so that I don't have to add too much boiling water from the kettle, because you know my kettle can only hold so much. So I'm draining. Supposedly if you add water to the bottom, you have less air pockets. So I guess we'll see. So we'll also see how much this can actually hold. That is 2 full. Okay, there we go. So, reach across, grab my kettle, top it off. Wipe the rim, and put a lid on. That actually worked out pretty good. Now my canner can hold, I've got 12 in here right now, but I think I can technically hold 14 of these little jars. So I'm just going to go through and see how many jars I get out of 6 cups. I'm not going to make you sit and watch all of this either. It's actually pretty close. Oops, sorry about that. Lucky number 13. So probably could have fit one more in there, but it took 13 jars. As you can see, I have one reusable lid on here. I don't have a lot of good success using reusable lids on pressure canning. So if it seals, it seals. If it doesn't, it doesn't. But I'm planning on using it at the end of the week for chicken chili, so I can test out the gas factor, gas index, whatever we're going to call it. Anyways, an hour and 15. Oh, I did forget to mention, if you want to put salt in with your beans, it's normally a half a teaspoon per pint jar, so these would require a little bit less. It's not required for preservation, it's only for flavor. So add it if you want, don't add it. I like to add it after, when I put it in the dish, so that I've got, flexibility on the salt level, but that's just me. They just came out of the canner, so they're still hot and bubbling. Some of them are still sealing. Some of them have already sealed. They look pretty good. My only concern would be how soft are they. So I guess we will see. My other concern is how farty are they? How gassy are they? So I did rush the canner to get these ones out so I could get the other load in, and I had a little bit of siphoning. But you know what? It happens. I think they'll be okay. And the canner was actually, I didn't rush this batch, and it came out, oops, fogging up, came out nice and clear. So I let this one sit the right amount of time to not have siphoning. but we'll see. And we will see if this one seals or not. But I'm still using it for chicken chili anyways. It has been more than 12 hours since these have been processed, so now is the time to get the bands off, get the bands washed, get the jars washed, and check the seals. So you can do the tap test. You can also grab it, sometimes it's a little awkward, grab it by the top and give it a little test. It should stay on. If you go through and you have a seal, all of mine did seal, but if they sound different, but it did seal, you may just have a weak seal. You probably just want to use those ones first. When I'm done cleaning my jars, what I like to do is I put the band back on, just because I don't have a ton of storage space, and I like to store other things on top. I don't want any pressure on my flat. So I will put the lid back on, but I'll just put it on so it clicks just down onto the glass, but there's no pressure on the flat. That way if I put something on it, it's resting on the glass of the jar and not the flat, and it won't compromise my seal. It also means I have a place to store these. So I will go through, I'm going to get all these off and cleaned, and here I'll show you how to clean up the jars. So I just like to have some hot soapy water. I don't submerge my jars unless they're like super stubborn. I mean, I don't submerge them, but if it's super stubborn, like super sticky, I will, sometimes I'll dunk them in the water, just the bottom part. So I just wipe it all, I wipe the flat. I really want to get around the threads because that's where, if there's any leakage, that's where it will be. And that's it. I just let it air dry, or I'll just dry the tops. I will label the tops. You label them how you want. I normally just use masking tape and put it on because I use the flats also for doing freeze-dried stuff, and I don't want a million things written on it, but you do you. So I went through and I tapped all my jars earlier, so they all should be good. These are the chickpeas. I think I had a little bit of siphoning. And then just a close-up look at the beans. I'll show you how they both look. They both look really good. So my only concern is going to be if the pinto beans are soft and mushy. Like, will they hold up to being used in chili, chicken chili, or, I'm sure they make great refried beans, but how will they hold up in a dish? So, and will they actually have less toots in them? Now, just a word of warning, when you are canning beans, it will smell like bean off-gassing in your house. Just so you know. I always hoped it was that I was getting out some of the gas beforehand, but, it wasn't the case. So I'm hoping this time with the vinegar soak that it is the case. I just have a drying rack off to my side, and I will just give these a quick clean and throw everything on the drying rack until I can label it. And then I keep a database where I have all my canned goods listed by what size I have, how many of that size, when it was processed, and then as I go through and use it, this is another good reason to have the masking tape, is I just stick the tape on the sink, or by the side of my sink, when I clean the jars after I've emptied them, and then I can just take that tape and remember to remove it from my database. And then once there's no more entries from that, I know I should have no more jars. Doesn't mean I haven't made mistakes in counting in the past, but for the most part, it should mean they're all gone. And then I know when to make more. Now, I will be taking one of these jars of the pinto beans, and I will be making another chicken chili. This one I don't think I have any more kits for, so I will probably just make it from scratch. I'll take you along for that, and I will let you know how it turned out. So how squishy I thought they were, and if I felt like I had less intestinal issues, let's just say. These ones wash up the same way. I just wash the top, wash around the threads, and the bottom. If you have a good seal, the lid shouldn't come off while you're washing it. If the lid comes off while you're washing it, it wasn't a good seal, you just need to eat it. Put it in the fridge for a couple of days at most. You could reprocess, but some things I feel don't hold up well to reprocessing. These, generally I just stick my thumb in and I just go around and that gets them clean, and then I just rinse them, and that's that. don't think you need to see me washing a bunch of ranch, so. In order to test out the beans, I am making up a batch of chicken chili. We make this all the time, and this is essentially what the beans are going to be used for. To begin, I have diced up a chicken breast, and I will get that in my pan to begin browning it. I like to leave the chicken alone to ensure good browning, because that will also ensure good flavor. While the chicken is cooking, I will add in the spices. Not only is now a good time, but many spices benefit from being bloomed in hot oil, or chicken fat, as the case may be. I am adding in salt, pepper, cumin, smoked paprika, garlic powder, and onion powder. This is because I'm not using a mix today. I could tell you the amounts I put in, but everyone has different tastes. And every time I make this, I always add different amounts. I normally just go on how it tastes. I also made this really mild for my kiddo to enjoy. For now, I give the chicken a turn to begin browning the other side, and this will also get the spices into the fat. I add in some frozen diced peppers that I am trying to use up, as well as some freeze-dried onions. While it was a very odoriferous process to freeze-dry these, they do make for nice and easy meal prepping, so I highly recommend doing it if you have a freeze dryer. I add in some chili powder and cilantro at this point, as well as digging out my Mexican oregano that I keep forgetting I have. I roll a pinch between my hands to break it up and make it more aromatic. Finally, I add in some tomato sauce and allow the whole thing to simmer. I do taste this and adjust everything as needed. My last additions are frozen corn that I allowed to simmer for a couple of minutes, followed by the beans. I did remove a bean from the jar to test for firmness, and I was actually pleased that the bean wasn't total mush. There did seem to be some resistance when I gave it a gentle squeeze. As for the enjoyment of the beans, they were soft and rendered little texture to the chili itself while still allowing for great flavor. Are they gas-free? No. Does that mean this failed for me? Again, no. A fail would have been painful trapped gas. So I had a few toots. I didn't have the pain, so I think this was actually a win for me. I believe I would do this again if I remember to soak them ahead of time with the vinegar. In a pinch, if I needed beans, I'd just toss some in the Instant Pot and deal. But if I'm able to plan ahead, this is the method I would choose. I do hope you found this video useful. Give it a like to let me know. I was a little skeptical about this only because it can be hard to believe what you see on the internet. But I tested this, and I personally found it useful. And I hope you give it a try and find it as useful as well. And I hope I see you next time on the Aerogarden Homestead.